You are listening to Beyond the Whistle. Beyond the Whistle is the show that takes you beyond the X's and O's to provide tips and advice on the business of sports and how sports professionals can advance in their careers. Beyond the Whistle is brought to you by McCants Sports, a sports executive search and sports leadership consulting firm. Learn more at McCantsSports.com. Welcome to Beyond the Whistle. I'm your host, Odell McCants, and thank you for listening. If you're an Android user, I have exciting news to share. Google has released a new podcast listening app, which is now native to Android phones. You can find this show, Beyond the Whistle, on Google Podcasts. And even better, save it to your phone's desktop. Is that what you call it on a phone? And be notified of new episodes. It's a big development in the evolution of podcasts, as Google was way behind Apple. You can find the app in the Google Play Store or even already installed on your phone from a recent Android update, perhaps. Just search for Beyond the Whistle and be sure to save it to your home screen. I think that's what you call the desktop on a phone. In this episode, I have a repeat guest, my friend Kevin Sutton. Kevin was my very first interview in episode 2 of Beyond the Whistle, titled Persistence on the Coaching Career Path. Well, because of just how life works, this is kind of an unplanned part 2. You see, in episode 2, Kevin was an assistant coach at Pittsburgh. He shared his career journey, how he has navigated a career coaching at a nationally ranked high school level and college, from the Atlantic 10 to the Big East to the ACC. Kevin also shares in that episode his process of evaluating career opportunities and what's important to him in his coaching career. If you haven't listened to episode 2, I highly encourage you to do so. You can find it listed in your podcast app, and there's also a link in the show notes of this episode. Fast forward to today, episode 17. Last season, Kevin experienced a very challenging season at Pitt, with the team going 8-24 and 0-18 in the ACC. It was not a season anyone plans on having for sure, with it culminating with head coach Kevin Stallings and the entire coaching staff, including Kevin, being let go. In this episode, Kevin shares what he personally took from such a tough season for his own professional development and personal growth. He shares the success that the team did have on and off the court, even if they did not result in games won. And also, Kevin shares defining what a win is for him in his coaching career. Picking up on that theme of episode 2, persistence on the career path, Kevin and I discuss having persistence when facing the process of looking for a new job. But even more than that, what needs to drive your persistence? Taking time for family, having tough conversations with your significant other, putting together a plan so that you are networking and exploring the right opportunities, not just any opportunity, and using that time to continually develop professionally, stay relevant, and be prepared for opportunities when they present themselves. And I was very excited for Kevin to share right at the opening his new position, which I'll let him share with you. Here's my conversation with Kevin Sutton. I'm really excited to have today as my guest on Beyond the Whistle, my dear friend and new assistant coach at the University of Rhode Island, Kevin Sutton. Kevin, welcome to Beyond the Whistle.
Thank you, Odell. I really appreciate this opportunity to come and be a part of your podcast. I watched you from afar and now have an opportunity to be a part of it up close. So I'm really impressed with what you're doing.
Yeah, and you're a second-time guest, and I really appreciate that.
Yes, I think I happened to be the first guest that you had.
Were.
So I'm really honored to be asked to come back on your show.
So, Kevin, I was really excited to announce there you've joined the staff at University of Rhode Island with our friend David Cox, new head coach. Man, tell me about this opportunity.
It's a tremendous opportunity to further my career. I've been really fortunate to be in basketball for 32 years, and the opportunity I have now at the University of Rhode Island on David Cox's staff is a tremendous opportunity and something that I look forward to being a part of. You know, David's, like you said, a dear friend of ours, and I've watched his career. He's from the Washington, D.C. area, and he's going to do some tremendous things as the new head coach here at the University of Rhode Island.
Kevin, so going back to last season at University of Pittsburgh, I know it's not a season that anyone hopes to have. And when you look back on it, what do you take away from a professional development standpoint going through a season like you had last year?
It was a season of growth. first and foremost, we had outstanding kids, young men, student athletes that really bought into Coach Stallings' philosophy and system on the court and off the court as well. And so a great deal of credit goes to those young men. They played very hard. They were outstanding in the classroom. They had the highest grade point average in Pittsburgh men's basketball history. 5 players made the first team, all ACC in academics. They were visible in the community. And they learned, since they were so young, they learned how to practice, and they were really, really good in practice. Unfortunately, winning is a very important part of sports. And unfortunately, we didn't win enough games. And so subsequently, our staff was let go, and then several of the players moved in a different direction, as well as several of them stayed there at the University of Pittsburgh. So all in all, last year was a tremendous growth year and a learning experience.
It is a real testament to you guys as a staff and those kids of how they battled and never gave up. And I didn't even know about all the off the court success. And I know from an on the court standpoint, 2 games that really stood out to me. They were late in the season. One was at Florida State, and then the ACC tournament game. Both games where those kids had every opportunity, to just mail it in and not even show up. And they really, literally battled to the very end.
And that's a testament to their character. They were all really good players coming out of high school, and many of them had won, championships coming out of high school. So these young men were used to winning. And you're 100%, accurate. They could have mailed it in very easily. Could have mailed it in. And those 2 games stand out in my mind as well, Odell. We played a tremendous game down at Tallahassee against Florida State, and we know that they went on to have a deep run into the NCAAs, and then the ACC tournament game against, we played really well in that game as well against Notre Dame, who just 2 weeks earlier really, kicked our butts up at Notre Dame. So those 2 games definitely stand out in my mind, and will always, have a special place in my heart because, like you said, they could have quit at any point.
On a recent episode of the podcast, I spoke with Khadijah Head, who is associate women's head coach at Kennesaw State. And Khadijah talked about how, as a coach, defining what a win means to you, not just on the court or on the scoreboard, because, she put it, unless you're working for Gino at UConn, you're going to have a lot more losses than you may have wins. What are some of the ways that you define a win for yourself as a coach?
That's, first of all, it's a great question and a statement, because winning can be defined in a number of different ways. The obvious way is you have more points than your opponent, but sometimes you can actually win a game, on the scoreboard, but lose in how you perform and how you act and how you behave. And then sometimes you can have less points on the scoreboard and lose the game and actually win, depending on how you perform and behave with class and dignity and honor. So for me, winning is defined, obviously by, the scoreboard, but it's also defined in how you handle your successes and how you handle those failures. Last year for us, our record is indicative that we did not have a winning season, but I think there were a great deal of accomplishments that were made. And so I look at those as things that to be in terms of that were wins, if you will. So impacting lives and touching lives and watching young men grow into men are usually how I define, how successful I am.
So, Kevin, how have you spent your time between jobs?
That's a great question. I've spent my time on a personal level. I've spent more time with my family, my wife and my children. I try to be more present in the present moment when I'm with them. I attended more of my daughter's dance classes and shows at schools and went on field trips and the like. And, with my wife, we spent a great deal of time of preparing, planning, and executing our plan as we prepare to, to move into the next phase of our lives and then the next career move for me. I spent a great deal of time, learning, who I truly was and, what I really wanted out of my career. Did a lot of soul searching, a lot of, introspection and, wanting to identify my strengths and my weaknesses and which type of, program I wanted to get involved with and which type of coach I wanted to be involved with. If I was fortunate enough to interview for different, situations. I learned an awful lot about, who was in my inner circle, who were my confidants, people that I could, trust and believe and who trust and believed in me and who I valued, their opinions. So I spent a great deal of time with them. And then, from a spiritual standpoint, just dove deeper into my faith and, reaching out to, a lot of people that I call my prayer warriors, and just, leaned on them, and then, try to, continue to grow spiritually, and, to deal with the things that I was, dealing with, in preparation for my next move. And then professionally, just did a lot of things to keep myself relevant, on people's minds, writing blogs, tweeting, attending high school basketball games, the playoffs, tournaments, AAU events, networking, just trying to reach out to people and, let them know, I was available and that I would be of value to them and just continue to try to grow my network to see who, people that could reach out and help me. I read a lot. I like to read, and so I read a lot. I set a goal for myself to read 2 books in a week, and I was on a good pace with that, and it was interesting. So while I was reading, it was for my my knowledge, but also be able to have information and topics to enter into conversations with people, and obviously I wanted to learn more. I attended a lot of professional development seminars and events, and then certainly watched more basketball, high school basketball, college basketball, international basketball, pro NBA basketball, taking a lot of notes, doing scouting reports, just trying to keep myself as relevant as possible and prepared. So when I got on interviews and got into conversations, I knew what I was talking about and the like. And then finally, just making sure my resume, my reference page, my bio page, and my contact information was all accurate and up to date and professionally done. So that's what I did in between.
Yeah, it's a lot. You spent a lot of great time investing in yourself, and I like to hear how you stayed on top of your craft. Attending high school games and breaking down film and doing scouting reports. Because I think when things don't go as we plan them to, it's easy to kind of just get into a shell. I know for me, when my agency didn't really work out the way I thought it would, and I had planned it to, and lost some clients, I had this feeling of like, oh man, the whole world knows that I lost this client, and I'm afraid to go out there. And what are people going to think? And then, I came to learn, Kevin, very few people knew. I still had NBA teams calling me, asking me about a former client. I'm thinking, oh, you didn't know? I thought the whole world knew what happened to me.
What's interesting, Odell, that's very real. You as an individual, when you go through those type of situations, you really think that everyone is just, oh my God, everyone's going to know I'm a failure, and all these different types of things. But in actuality, what you need to do is continue to invest in yourself and continue to believe in yourself, to get yourself in a position where you're positive and you're in a great space mentally, spiritually, and physically, to go out and do the things that you need to do, which is, for me, was to take care of my family, put ourselves in a situation where we would be employed again and in a better situation for, what I call Team Sutton. So you do have to not beat yourself up, and you also have to realize that you're not the only person that this ever happened to. And once you can get past that, then I think then you're on the right path to, rejuvenating your career. Sometimes these things happen out of your control. It's not in your control, and you have to be, to recognize that. And when you do recognize that, that's when you can, get yourself in a better space.
And I like to hear that you stayed abreast of all basketball, from high school to international and NBA. Mm-hmm. I mean, number one, because it's basketball, but also, mm-hmm. I'm thinking you don't know what that next opportunity is going to be. Maybe it is in the NBA, or maybe it is with an international club or an mm-hmm. NBA team focused on international, and really staying, as you put it, really staying relevant.
Yeah, I mean, you actually don't know, and it is interesting. There's some of the situations that I was involved with, were high school. Some of them were, speaking with clubs internationally, and in all levels at the collegiate level here, whether low Division I, mid Division I, high Division I jobs, as well as asking questions about the NBA and the direction that they were going in, whether it be in the G League, scouting, and the like. So with that being said, I just wanted to make sure that I was, aware of all parts of the game of basketball at all levels. So whatever best opportunity presented itself, and I would take whatever that opportunity was, then I would be able to hit the ground running with a knowledge base of what goes on at that particular level of basketball.
So, Kevin, we touched on this in episode 2. So you were my first interview of episode 2, and it was titled "Persistence on the Coaching Career Path," of preparing to step on and work on a new campus and with a new coach, in terms of you working for that person for the first time. How do you go about preparing yourself for that?
I think that you have to continue to prepare yourself and, learn about the situation that you're going into. There's so much information out here before you get there. There's so much information at your fingertips on the computer that you can learn about. You can learn about the coach. You can learn about the athletic administration. You can learn about the school. And I think all those things are important. So when you come to the table, you have a knowledge base, already. And then, you got to prepare yourselves by, reading through the contract that you're given. Make sure you totally understand it and you know it really well. The other things that you have to prepare yourself for is, you got to have those discussions with your significant other. I really believe in this, that you have to have those serious conversations about your finances. It's about, do we want to rent the place? Do we want to buy the place? Are the benefits in order? Do they fit our needs as a family? How far, would our family go? How far, for me, it was like, how far west would we go? Or, how far south or how far north, would we go before I could, would feel comfortable, where she could feel comfortable and our family could feel comfortable. And following your career, do you live apart? Do you, for that first year, because your family's already stable and stabilized in another situation? Or do you uproot your family and you all come together at the same time? Your children's education and just all those different types of things that you can prepare for, just simply by having conversations and just doing, the background information, gaining background information, collecting them, the information and processing the information. Those are the type of things that you can prepare for.
I feel like some of these topics are kind of taboo in the coaching profession of talking about, like finances. Looking at a job, and do the finances make sense for you and your family? Mm-hmm. Instead of just applying and trying to network and connect with every job that comes open.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think we all go through that period, that stages in our career where, you have to start to take ownership. And the earlier you take ownership of your career, the better. And if you chase, jobs for the money, sometimes they can lead you in different places, and in that you don't want to be in. And so I think that it's really important that you have these conversations. Like I said, if you're in a relationship, whether and you have to. Those relationships can be different. I mean, you can have a fiance, you can have a brand new wife, or you can be married for several years, or you can be single. And all of these things you really have to consider as you prepare for your career. You'll be able to do some things as a single person that you can't do when you're married, and there's other things that you can't do. When you start to have a family, you start to have to take serious looks at particular jobs and see if it is in the best interest of everyone, and not just you as the individual.
How important of a role or factor did the institution play for you? I mean, you've worked at some really great academic institutions, and how important was that in your evaluation process of looking at opportunities?
It's always been important. It's always been important to me to be associated, with universities and the high school programs that I've been associated with, to have strong, reputations in terms of the education, first and foremost. Secondly, strong support systems for the basketball programs. I think that's important. And the leadership. What is the vision? What direction are we going in? What do we want to accomplish, and are we willing to do what it takes to accomplish those things? And then after we accomplish those things, are we willing to continue to do the things that it takes to stay there? A mutual friend and coach of ours, Stu Vetter, has always had a quote that I still remember and say often. And that quote is, the hardest thing about success is maintaining that success. And I think people don't understand that, and they don't realize what it takes. I mean, once you get there, you want to stay there, and staying there is hard. Getting there is hard, but staying there is even harder, because you're no longer, on that climb. You're there, and now people are coming after you and gunning for you. So the hardest thing about success is maintaining that success. So the institutions that I've been wanted to be a part of, have been a part of, and wanted to be a part of, like here at the University of Rhode Island, is strong leadership. Strong understanding of what success is and what it takes to continue to be successful, and then the educational piece, has always been has to be important.
I discovered a book. I first discovered it in the LA Clippers player lounge, and yes, there are books in there, and it's titled "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." And the author's name escapes me, but I'm going to have a link to it and all the information in the show notes. And I love that book, and it talks about just that. What got you, there are things that got you here, and then talking about sustaining that, but then elevating to that next level. It can't be continuing the same process of what got you to this level.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great point. I mean, what gets an individual to a certain point, is one thing, and then sustaining that success has to be another, and then after you sustain that success, you want to continue to be successful and maybe venture into another direction. So I think evolving is something that we all should try to continue to strive, continue to work hard to continue to evolve, as a person, and as a professional. I think it's always important that you're trying to evolve.
Kevin, when I think about the scenarios that assistant coaches find themselves in when they've lost a job. I think of three. Either a head coach makes a decision to not retain someone on their staff, or number two, the head coach is terminated, so the head coach and the staff, or number three, a head coach moves on to another job and may not take everyone on that staff with him or her to the next job. Mm-hmm. Do you see the gather yourself to prepare to look for that next opportunity or being different? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the question makes sense, and those three situations are very relevant. I think that as an assistant coach, our careers are definitely attached to the head coach, and so what we try to do, you try to make yourself as successful as possible by being, able to do as many things as you possibly can. Like we tell our players, versatility. The more versatile you are, the more valuable you are. So you want to make sure that you are as professional as you possibly can. I try to be involved in as many things that aren't assigned to me, as certainly as the things that are assigned to me, because I want to be able to have the knowledge of everything that goes on, in the business of coaching basketball, videos and scouting reports, and the defense if you're the offensive coordinator, the offense if you're the defensive coordinator, and certainly with recruiting, and now recruiting is a global thing, and it's it's something that you all have to be involved in, and being relevant, and certainly how the game is changing, and making sure that you're able to teach the game, and then relationships across the board, relationships amongst your staff members, relationships with your players, relationships with your administration. So I think all those things are important, and continue to, like I said, take advantage of the professional development opportunities that are there, connecting with and being aware of how the business side of the sport is continuing to change. And with that, to give you an example, it's like, search firms, excuse me, search firms are a big part of the business side now. So it's important to try to connect with them and let them see who you are and what you're about and what you stand for, and just being relevant and and also understanding all these different aspects that go into the business side of the sport called basketball.
So you are joining a program that has had tremendous success in the A-10 under Danny Hurley, and now David being elevated from associate head coach, who really helped and played such a critical role in building that program, and now is getting the chance to lead it, which I'm so excited for. And I tell you, we talked about this offline before we recorded. The one word that I think about when I think about that program last several years is toughness. I mean, those guys play with a toughness. What are you looking to bring to your role, and especially in a situation where there's continuity there with an associate head coach being elevated head coach, but I'm sure David's going to have his tweaks or put his identity, his stamp on the program as well. So what are you looking to bring to your role?
I'm looking to bring professionalism, first and foremost. I'm looking to bring a wealth of experience at all levels. And a knowledge of the game of basketball, and not just of the game of basketball, but also, like I said before, the business side of basketball. And my number one objective is to make sure that David is successful. And Coach Cox has done a great job of navigating his career and deserves this opportunity. So I wanted to come here and be a part of his staff to help him be as successful as he possibly can be. In every way, shape, and form, to instill his philosophy. He had Danny did a tremendous job here, but Coach Cox was also an integral part of that, the success that, the University of Rhode Island had here. So I wanted to join this staff and to help him to continue to build the program that he has always envisioned in his mind and in his heart. So with my wealth of experience and knowledge for the game of basketball, and certainly for the business side of basketball.
Well, Kevin, I'm really excited for you in this new opportunity. In closing here, what are 3 things that you would like to leave our coaches listening to help them prepare or be proactive for the situation when they do lose a job? Because we know in this business, it's going to happen. And what are some things that you would like to leave our coaches thinking about?
There's several things, Odell, that and I want to come from a place of a mentor. I want to come from a spirit of love, and the number one thing is that you're not going to be the first person that's ever been let go, re-signed, demoted, fired. So just continue to strive, continue to serve, continue to share, continue to believe in yourself and your career. Prepare yourself by being multidimensional and learn as much as you possibly can. Number 3, I would say invest in yourself from a professional standpoint. Learn how to network properly, grow relationships, and continue to share your knowledge with other coaches and build a strong network that way. And then, lastly, I would say, so you asked for 3, but I'll give you 4. Lastly, I would just simply say, continue to evolve. Don't allow yourself to be pigeonholed. Continue to evolve as a professional and grow in all areas of your life.
Well, Kevin, you always add value and you always give me more than I ask for. So I really appreciate that.
Well, Odell, I'm honored to have been on your show for the second time. I wish you nothing but continued success, and you're doing great things. I listen, whenever I can, and I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you. And lastly, Kevin, you're very active on social media and your blog. Where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you and follow you?
My website, which is www.kevinsuttonbasketball.com. My blog site is www.kevinsuttonbasketball.wordpress.com. And then on Twitter, at Coach Sutton. I try to be as relevant as I possibly can, and occasionally we'll tweet out some things. But those are places that people can connect with me.
Great. Well, Kevin, as always, thank you very much for your time, sharing your knowledge, and being so transparent and sharing in your experiences. And best of luck at Rhode Island.
Thank you very much, Odell. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Whistle. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. It's the best way to stay updated on the newest episodes. Beyond the Whistle is a production of McCants Sports, a sports executive search and talent solutions firm. To learn more about McCants Sports, visit McCantssports.com.